Alright, if you look at our next set of examples, these are equations. Okay, from the given equation, determine whether the lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Okay, remember from functions and from the first slide on today's notes, I mentioned that y equals mx plus b. Okay, and whenever y equals mx plus b, m is the slope. So when we go through and look at all of these examples, you need to be looking at the number in front of x. So for number 1, my slopes are 2 and 2. Okay, you need to then decide what the slope is. The slopes are 2 and 2. Then you need to decide, are they parallel, which means they have the exact same slope? Are they perpendicular, which means that they have opposite signs, one positive, one negative, and reciprocals. So they has to be the number flipped upside down. Or neither. Okay, so looking at example number 1, my slope is 2. The slope of the other line is 2. Well, that means that these are going to be parallel lines. Okay, if I was to plug this into my graphing calculator, okay, and I hit the graph button, it would graph 2 lines, and they would both be going in the same direction, and they would look parallel. Alright, my second example, I need to identify my slopes. Again, my slope is the number in front of x. So my first slope is 2 over 3. My second slope is negative 3 over 2. So they're not parallel. It's not the exact same number. I can't say that they're parallel. So I need to check perpendicular. Perpendicular says that one of the slopes is positive. So my first slope is 2/3. And the other slope has to be negative. Well, the other slope is negative 3 over 2. So that works out. One's positive, one's negative. Okay? Then they have to be reciprocals. So 2 over 3, if I flip that upside down, it is 3 over 2. So these lines are in fact perpendicular. Okay? If I use the multiplication trick, then if I multiply them, okay, if I go ahead and multiply them, I'll multiply the top. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. 3 times 2 is 6. That reduces to negative 1. That still makes them perpendicular. Okay, so whether you use the opposite reciprocal rule or the multiplying to be negative 1, it's the same thing. Alright, number 2, my slopes are 2 and 5. 2 and 5 are obviously not the same number, so I know it's not parallel. Okay, in order to be perpendicular, which is my next option, okay, one of the slopes has to be positive. So 2 is positive, the other slope has to be negative. Well, 5 is also positive. So I don't even have to check reciprocals. They're both the same sign. This is not parallel, it's not perpendicular, so you need to write neither. Alright, and last example, our slopes are 1/2 and 2. 1/2 and 2 are not exactly the same number, so it's not parallel. I can rule that out automatically. Parallel is super easy to see. Okay, they're not parallel, so I need to check perpendicular. Perpendicular has to be opposite signs, so one has to be positive, 1/2 is positive, and one has to be negative, but 2 is also positive. So just off of the fact that both numbers are positive, I know that these are not parallel, they're not perpendicular, so they're neither. Now I do realize that these are reciprocals. 1 over 2 and 2 over 1 are reciprocals, but in order for them to be perpendicular, they have to be opposite signs and reciprocals. Okay? Alright, and that's everything you need to know so far about parallel and perpendicular lines.